If you enjoy this content, please take a moment to rate and review it. Your feedback will greatly impact our ability to reach more people. Thank you.
Well, the show lined up. Yep.
Thanks for doing the show last week. It was great with Paul. I listened to it on the way back.
Dude, he's so smart. He's so smart. Yeah. We're lucky to have friends like him. I'm happy for him that he's getting a break from having to be a day-to-day operator.
Yeah.
He's very good at it, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. So he can come here and fill in for you, not whatever he wants, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Ton of stories this week.
Yeah, it's like a whiplash week. I mean, we called it last week whiplash, but I feel like it's continuing.
I mean, there's literally things that we talked about last week that have been reversed.
They've changed, right?
This week.
Yeah.
So yeah, a ton of whiplash. And I don't know. I personally don't have much to talk about other than the stories. So
yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, ready.
All right, dig in. Let's start with the economy. As always, trade tensions weigh down Nvidia tech stocks. Dow drops 700 points. Fed Chair Jerome Powell warns of economic risk. This is Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, I mean, the stock market does not like uncertainty, and we have chaos. I mean, no one knows what to expect, and so it's down. It's going to keep being down, then up a little bit, but I think the trend is more down than up.
Zoning in on healthcare for a second, we identified in the beginning of the year that healthcare last year was completely flat. The index, S&P industrial sector of healthcare was completely flat. Worst performing sector.
Yeah.
Worst performing sector. Right. And off to a pretty rough start. We're going to dig into it later, but off to a pretty rough start. So it feels like the whole story about sort of year-over-year growth. And look, it's interesting, right? Because we would talk about it and we would complain about it. The fact that we've got, runaway growth of healthcare eating away GDP,
it
was $2 trillion.
$3.5 trillion. When we started $2 trillion, then it's $3 trillion. Now it's $4 trillion. Now $4.5. Yeah.
So, to some degree, it seems like it's time. But it's very painful and very scary to the industry now that we're here and the way that it's actually happening.
Yeah, I think that's right.
All right, next story. Powell warns of challenging scenario as Fed and trade war rages. We talked about this a little bit before the show started. People seem to be at odds around the idea of whether or not the tariffs are inflationary or deflationary. And I think you've got some opinion on this, but Powell is asserting that the tariffs are inflationary.
Yeah,
is that correct?
So Powell spoke in New York, I guess yesterday.
New York Fed
on Wednesday. Yeah, no, it was some lunch that they had.
like an economic forum kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And his basic point was that tariffs are going to drive inflation higher, and his dual mandate of keeping price stables and full employment is then going to make it difficult for him to keep up with both those things. And I think that's the discussion. Are the tariffs going to be inflationary, and under what time frame? Maybe. So I think if you add a tariff and nothing changes, I think it's clearly inflationary. But it's my expectation that there's going to be a pretty significant reduction in the overall economy that is going to actually make people, concerned about their jobs or lose their jobs, and the stock market is going down. And I think people will, in general, buy fewer things, and that puts downward pressure on pricing. So I don't believe that in a time frame like 3 months or 6 months, inflation is a very big concern. But that's what he was talking about yesterday.
Yeah, it seems to me that prices going up will happen faster than consumers adjusting their spending. It's more likely they'll just go into more debt. They'll use more credit cards before they adjust. Businesses are going to be swift in increasing costs and passing those to the customer because they're more disciplined than consumers are, and they have to move very quickly to keep their P&Ls right side up. So
yeah, that's correct until people lose their jobs.
Yes, which will be after.
Yeah, that's right. It just depends on your time frame. And in the next 30 days, I think prices are going to be up.
Right.
But in the next 3 to 4 months, I think there's going to be a lot of economic damage, and which will then make inflation not high.
Yeah.
But that's what Powell's talking about.
It's all just so complicated. And in the modern economy, we've not been here.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's a lot of different levers that are going on, especially as, the tariffs are not, one, they don't move in one direction. They're bidirectional, right? So there's the response to the tariffs that are coming in just as hot as our tariffs are going out. And the impact of all of those things is very, very difficult to price in, right?
Yeah. And I guess I wish that the chairman of the Federal Reserve could be a little more forward-looking, try to help people by saying that he will do what's needed, as opposed to say, this is really bad and we're not going to be able to fulfill both our mandates and how terrible it is. But that's what he did. That's what he said.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably acknowledging that he will have to be reactionary because there's no world in which he can move as fast as Donald Trump moves.
Yeah. I mean, he can't change policy until there's a meeting.
That's right.
And I think in the May meeting, he needs to cut rates. But he doesn't think that, or he didn't talk about that. So
we'll see. So you pulled this report, business leader report from the New York Fed. It's 5 pages, so very, very easy, and we'll put a link in the show notes to it. But on page 4, there's forward-looking indicators. These are all sort of these are like sentiment, right?
Yeah, it's business leaders, CEOs. The New York Fed polls the people that run businesses in their geography. They do it monthly, and the forward-looking statements. Some of them are the worst that it's ever been. The business climate, I think, is the worst that it has ever been in the last 2 months. Some of them are the worst since COVID, but it's really bad. The New York Fed obviously rolls up to the overall Fed.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's crazy.
Chairman Powell certainly has this data.
I mean, the idea that the business climate is worse than COVID.
Right.
Like, that is just, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, it makes sense to me. I mean, in COVID, you had this outside factor hit us, from out of the blue.
Yeah.
And all of the power of government, corporations, really everyone was trying to figure out a solution. It was scary, but we were all trying to solve it.
Yeah.
And now it's not that.
No.
I mean, you have at least 2, probably more than 2 different sides fighting each other.
Yeah. No, I mean, of these charts, there's 4 charts here for the listeners. 1 is business activity, 2 is business climate, 3 is number of employees, 4 is wages. Number of employees and wages, when comparing this period we're in right now to COVID, kind of not even close. Like, COVID was much worse in terms of the decline in employees and the decline in wages, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty on the nose when you're comparing business activity from COVID to now, but the climate is
worse,
way worse, right? And we're talking about the precipitating event in 2020 being an actual global pandemic that shut down the world economy.
Yeah.
Versus what the current administration of the United States is issuing as economic executive policy.
Right. Yeah, and people that are Trump supporters will say you have to break some eggs to make an omelet, or whatever they'll say. There's a lot of damn eggs being broken, but maybe. And then, people on the Democratic side will say this is a, unforced error. You just drove the economy into this field. And I don't know which is right, but it's pretty painful to go through.
Yeah. Speaking of reciprocity, China halts critical exports as trade war intensifies. So it's interesting. It wasn't until I was sitting across from Paul that I heard anyone use the word war to reflect what's going on between the United States and China. And then immediately after that, I was looking around and I've seen basically everybody is calling it an economic war. And China, I mean, they're not just playing the tariff game. They're finding other levers that they can pull. Just as a quick answer, I probably should have sent you a link to include, but have you seen on social media, TikTok and Instagram in particular, the reels where or shorts, whatever you want to call those things, where there's a guy in a factory in China and he's deconstructing a Birkin bag. Birkin bag's like $5 figures to buy, right? Yeah. So he's deconstructing it, and the way that he's doing it is so clever because he's talking about like what a high quality bag it is, and he's talking about all the different parts. So he's not disparaging the bag in any way, shape, or form. But when he tells you the price of each one of those very high quality components, right? The final price is, it's like $500 for the bag. You know what I mean? And then you're paying 30x for the bag, right? You know what I mean? You're paying 30x the cost of it. And then he goes on to say, you can buy this bag from us and we'll only charge you $750, right? So, I don't know, what is that, 50% above cost, right? And he says the only difference between our bag and their bag is the logo.
Right.
And listen, like TikTok is in China. Like they're going to disseminate that. Like that's one of their strategies for war.
We had too many stories today, so we cut it. But one of the stories that we had that got cut is the biggest downloaded app, I think in the world. It's either the world or the U.S. I can't remember. Is this app that's selling products made in China exactly the same. It's just taking this TikTok video and putting it on an app that you can order from. And they literally are saying every factory in China that makes any kind of branded goods, we now are going to offer unbranded, the exact same product. And they do it through this app. And it's the number one downloaded app. Because if my, I don't have bags, but if my expensing fishing equipment can be half the price and it's the exact same quality, what do I care about the logo?
And dude, even if the duty on that is 125%,
still
but
better.
The price is
the duty on the expensive logo one is still the same. Well, you have the same tariff on that.
Or maybe you don't because you're buying it through the EU instead of. But I guess my point is just like if China's got the super over the top 125% tariff, but their price is 10% of the original price. Guess what? The consumer still wins buying from China, even with that tariff.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to 500% the tariff to make it not work.
Yes, that's right. And so, but this story is about them not sending all the rare earth materials that we need for automotive, for electric motors, for everything. Yeah, pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And we don't have sources of that. Now we could find it in the US, I think, but it's very
there's also
messy
sources in Africa, but we're not being very nice to African countries right now either. So
and mining's a dirty, difficult, dangerous thing that I think it's gonna be hard to do in the US.
Yep. Agree. And then this final story on the economy section is highlighting the weak dollar. So many things went down last week. Gold went down, right? A lot of it was people needed to make margin calls.
Yeah, I think the gold was
margin call.
Right, you got to sell something that has value.
Yeah, that was margin call stuff. But the bottom line is it went down, right? Because the forced sellers sort of everywhere, and with all of this, part of the strength of the dollar is the faith of the United States government, and that is in decline. And of course it is. No one can look at sort of the way we're carrying ourselves from a tariff perspective. And a foreign relations perspective and think that would not impair the dollar.
Yeah. And the weak dollar is actually going to be helpful for the economy thing. So I don't know how long it will last, but a little bit of weakness in the dollar will be beneficial in what I think is going to be a really difficult year from an economy point of view.
Yeah, for a period.
Yeah.
for a period. But a weak dollar that allows other currencies to raise up, and especially as they start creating new networks.
Yeah.
There's certainly a risk to that. All right, let's move it to the VC world. So Brillium snags 16.7 million Series A to use AI on patient charts. This is from Axios Pro.
Yeah. So they ingest the patient's chart in order to then make recommendations, which I think is good. I mean, it'd be good to have a human in the loop, which I think they have. But humans just looking at the chart, I mean, it's too much. You can't look through it all. So I think it's a good use case.
It says they saw their initial highest uptake among behavioral health entities, and now they have customers across weight loss, home health, and chronic care management. So they're not selling into health systems initially.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think that's smart. PolicyMe announces $30 million CAD. What is it? No, it's Canadian
dollars.
Yeah,
it's just in Canada.
Okay,
so 30 million.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, Canadian dollars.
It's close to US
funding.
dollars.
Yeah, close enough. Secured through multiple tranches, equity and debt financing from Blue Cross Life Insurance Company of Canada and Securian Canada.
So this is an insurance new company. I was interested in it because they're combining life insurance and health insurance.
That's cool.
Which I've been thinking about and wondering about, and they did it. They're in Canada, but but I think it's pretty good because it would balance each other. Yeah.
I think that's good. All right, we'll keep an eye on that. This is a local story. Deacon Health launches to bring tech-enabled care coordination services to specialty care. So for those in Nashville, we have some familiar names here. Herb Fritsch, former CEO of HealthSpring, Larry Cash, former CFO of Community Health Systems, and David Vandewater, former CEO of Ardent Health, are sort of key named investors in the $7 million seed funding round for this company.
Yeah, so it's a great group of really experienced healthcare folks in Nashville, and it's a hard space right now to enter. But they're good operators. Yeah.
I mean, good operators and all highly connected. So these are gentlemen that can actually open doors and close deals. So we'll have to watch Deacon Health in the care navigation space. All right, TechCrunch. Chapter, a Medicare startup with links to Vance, Thiel, and Ramaswamy, just raised around at a $1.5 billion valuation.
Yeah.
It's a Medicare advisory startup. Yeah.
So they basically help seniors think about what Medicare Advantage program they should go into. And then I think they get paid, they probably don't call it a commission, but a commission-like incentive for that. And it's very well connected in the Republican circles, but then they have a new Democratic leader that just joined the board. So they're sort of gearing up for this political world that we're in.
Yep, and well positioned.
Yeah,
well positioned. All right, Hellocare.ai scores 47 million for AI-enabled virtual care for smart hospitals. It's the first time I feel like I've seen the word smart hospital in one of these VC announcements. So that's worth noting. It's a .ai company, so credit to Bruce and Steve for getting the smart hospital brand out there. I hope they're benefiting from this. So Hellocare.ai offers AI-enabled virtual care delivery for smart hospital rooms. The round was contributed in by UC Health, Bon Secours, LRV Health, and OSF Ventures. So a bunch of health systems around the table.
Yeah, and they're really focused on the inpatient hospital experience. They will, and they do, then extend past discharge to take care of the patient at home with remote patient monitoring and other services. But it's primarily trying to make the hospital room more intelligent.
Mm-hmm. Attovia Therapeutics raises $90 million to treat autoimmune diseases. So this is a C round. And who's contributing to this one? Deep Track Capital, Sanofi Ventures, Vita Ventures, and Murray Asset Capital Life Science.
Yeah. So I don't really know the science, but it is really focused on treating patients with chronic pertussis, which is it's like an eczema. It's like a skin
autoimmune.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And they've got a portfolio of
Yeah,
assets that they're developing.
right,
Looks
all
like
around.
they've got 5 different assets they're building. So, okay. Some on the life sciences side. All right. We're going into policy now. For Politico, HHS funding slashed by 30% in budget proposal. That's a big cut.
Yeah.
That's
So,
a big cut.
I mean, just at the highest level, and this was sort of leaked, so it's not fully approved by the department yet, but I think it's pretty close to what Robert Kennedy Jr. is planning. So they're going from 120 billion last year to about 80 billion this year, which is a huge
cut.
amount of cut in people and just entire departments of CDC and all the different departments are getting huge swaths cut and reorganized. And I guess I'm hopeful that it comes out okay, but there's a lot of change really quickly going on.
Yep, that's the theme here. A lot of change really quickly.
Yeah.
So, that is across CMS, FDA, NIH, on and on and on.
Yeah.
A lot of change. CMS proposes a 2.4% bump to inpatient pay in fiscal year 2026, calls for deregulation, and MAHA, which is Make America Healthy Again, suggestions. This is fierce healthcare.
Yeah. So this is not yet official. So it's the first salvo in the negotiation, basically. But they did 2.6 last year, and that was really painful on all the hospital systems. And so 2.4 is pretty low raise.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to put pressure on health systems, as all these things are putting pressure on health systems.
Yep.
So not a good news story.
No, a much more favorable bump, more than 2x bump for Medicare Advantage.
Right.
So that if you're just comparing those two sort of rate increases, it's signaling more privatization, more competition, right? I'm inferring here, but
yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really difficult on the health systems. Medicare Advantage is a good plan, and giving them a bump I'm not opposed to, but it should be I'd rather it be also to the health systems.
Yeah, I'm simply comparing the two.
Yeah, right.
I mean, look, very, very low pay rates to the health systems, 340B challenges.
Yeah.
Looking for deregulation, site of care, site of service, is in scope.
Yeah.
This is a lot of challenges. Supplemental payments.
Yeah.
There's a lot of challenges for health systems at one time, man.
That's right.
That's a lot. That is a lot. Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say. It's got to be hard to run a health system right now.
Yes.
Oh, and then let's talk about if you're an academic, all the big cuts, all the funding cuts. All the grant cuts, right? It's just incredible. All right, Wall Street Journal, USDA is fast-tracking requests to yank soda from food stamps program. So SNAP continues to get a review from the MAHA perspective, and they're very aggressively going after soda.
Yeah, and I think of all the things, I'm not that upset about this. I mean, people should be able to buy whatever they want to buy, but getting food from the government because you are too poor to afford food, we should do. But I don't know if you should be able to buy Coke and other sodas. So
yeah, this feels pretty low on the controversy.
Pretty easy.
On the controversy side of things, and also true to form for what they were positioning. In the campaign trail. Fierce healthcare, CMS to end federal match for states' Medicaid funding requests. So we're going to dig into this story a little bit because it's a little bit in the weeds. So there are specific designated state health programs, or DSHPs, and designated state investment programs, DSIPs, that are under Section 1115 waiver authority.
Yeah.
And these programs have grown from $886 million in 2019 to nearly $2.7 billion in expenditures in 2025. Many of these things, I'm paraphrasing here, but generally sort of fit into the social determinants of health. So they're the things that sort of are infrastructure that you would layer healthcare services on top of. They're not directly healthcare services.
Right. Yeah. So you and Paul were talking about supplemental payments in Medicaid last week, and that was more about uncompensated care. There's some acronym, but which is in the same broad category as these waivers, but that is much more clinical, where these are, as you say, the SDOH sort of, they affect healthcare, but they're not directly in care.
Yeah. So, for example, one of the types of things that these programs fund would be rural broadband access.
Right.
Right. Which is kind of necessary when
If you're going to do telehealth.
If you're going to do telehealth and you're going to keep shutting down clinics and hospitals in rural America, you at least have to lay down, infrastructure for the internet, right?
Yeah.
Well, this actually is stripping away at the funding authority for CMS to continue to back those programs.
Yeah. There's some ride things that I think that are in this. There's the food. Some states offer food.
Yep.
Any of those kind of related to health, but not directly clinical.
Not clinical. That's
I think
exactly right.
is under this category.
Yeah.
And it has grown from 800 million to 2.7 billion.
Yes.
But all those things are important too.
They're important and they're related to health outcomes. And I think, it took us a long time to recognize that not all health is delivered via clinical services.
In an operating room. Right.
There's a lot of things on the periphery. I mean, they're not really in the periphery. They're on the periphery to the healthcare system. They're core and central to the individual's life.
Yes.
Right. The clinical work is actually periphery to the individual's life. It's
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's kind of the reverse. And so now these programs are actually
and I take the position that most people in Medicaid and Medicare are going to be, their care is going to be paid for by the federal government for a long time. Medicaid, you definitely might have people come off that and in and off, but in general, the government's going to pay for a lot of these folks' care for a long time. And if you take away support for the Social Security health, I think the taxpayer is going to pay more dollars later, just in a different category.
Yep.
So it's short-sighted. But.
Yep, agree. All right, moving on to stat news. Trump targets healthcare costs with executive order on drug price negotiations and hospital payments. So this is, it's an order. It's an executive order. So, its ability to actually make any big impact still has to move through HHS and CMS specifically. But I mean,
which
it's going to happen.
Kennedy controls.
Yes, that's
right.
Yeah.
They have to make
they
have to do the rule making process, which takes a few months. They're moving faster than normal, so it takes a little while. But they don't need to get votes in Congress. They can do this. It's really attacking a 340B plan.
Yes. And
maybe it needs to be redone. It's going to put a lot of pressure on, like, the same health systems are under the same pressure for all these changes.
Multiple line items of revenue being attacked at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So eventually, this is going to result in not just lower standards of care, but less accessibility of care, to our communities.
Yeah.
I mean, this is going to ultimately start affecting each and every one of us.
Yeah. Now,
each and every one of us.
We both have investments where maybe there can be innovations, telemedicine, AI, devices, other things, but that's going to be slow to sort of put together, and taking the rural health system out of the market. I don't know that
you can't replace that kind of infrastructure with the work we do.
Not that fast.
No, you can't replace that kind of infrastructure with the work we do. So Mark Cuban, who has been a pretty consistent critic of what is happening in Washington, but I also think shoots fair and straight and does not lean too heavy to any particular side.
Yeah, and he understands the prescription medication space because of what he's doing very well
with Cost Plus. He had a post on X where he basically is saying that the executive order on healthcare, and in particular drug pricing, could be very, very good for saving money. But then he lays out, some key points from his deep experience now and working on drug pricing. And he seems to believe that, between PBMs and some of the specialty tiers that are in place, that these things do need to be addressed. And that if you can address those things, you can lower the cost both for the government, but also for individuals.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with it. There's no question about that. I agree with, he is correct. And this detail is what would be in the rulemaking. And it is going to put pressure. I mean, if you get rid of 340B, I think there needs to be some way to get money to health systems, either through supplemental payments or some new plan that's maybe less convoluted than that. But the math is not going to work. And so I agree with Cuban, but the topic we were talking about with the last story is still in place, that it will save money. There's no question it'll save money. But then you're going to have pretty large areas of our country that have health systems that are going to be really in trouble. Another story we cut is Fitch is downgrading a whole bunch of nonprofit health systems, both because of these changes and also that they noted that their stock portfolios have gone down, just like at my stock. Everyone's stock portfolio has gone down.
Have we gotten Kevin scheduled yet?
I don't know.
Okay. We need to check on that. It's time to get Kevin on the show.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, this is more of a good show note for people to read. You know, Mark's good thinking here on pricing. Okay. What to know about Trump's antitrust efforts against the tech giants? So, shifting away from healthcare a little bit, there's been a lot of big news around the FTC and Meta. We're gonna dig into that in a little bit here, but also just more broadly, this FTC in this one way is pretty aligned with Lena Khan's FTC, and they are continuing the efforts against Google and Meta. Yeah,
I think that's right, and that is I think needed. And how to do it is complicated, but having 7 companies sort of dominate the stock market and dominate all of our lives is probably not useful or healthy in the long run.
Yeah.
But there needs to be some clarity of what are they allowed to buy and what they're not allowed to buy. But yes, they're looking really. I mean, people thought if they just give a little money and go to Mar-a-Lago, it'll be okay. And it turns out that's not happening so much.
No. You needed to do what Elon did.
Yeah.
To really, get the right position in place. Right. And so this next story from the Wall Street Journal, digs into Mark Zuckerberg's failed negotiations to end the antitrust case. The FTC wanted $30 billion to drop its case. Zuckerberg offered much less and hoped Trump would back him up. Trump did not. And so it's interesting, Mark tried to put Dana White on his board to sort of help with this. And Dana White's not enough. Not enough.
Yeah. The 7 stocks are maybe too powerful. And I think that it's really difficult to, what they're trying to do is reverse the allowance of Facebook to buy Instagram 10, 12 years ago. I mean, a long time ago. And one, it's a very competitive marketplace in my mind. I mean, there's a lot of social media companies and no real barrier for a new one starting up. And so I think it's a hard case to make. But this story goes through Zuckerberg's failed attempt, and then the head of the FTC, went to visit Trump, who he reports to, and basically said, let me finish this, coach. Like I can win. And
Trump's backing
him.
Trump's backing him. Yeah.
So
Zuckerberg didn't have the loyalty that he had hoped his last ditch efforts would provide.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of his sucking up to Elon and and the UFC, not good enough, buddy. Japan regulator orders Google to stop anti-competitive practices, and so not just here in the U.S. but abroad, Google facing some serious threats from Japan, and we'll talk shortly about the UK.
Yeah. I don't know much about this government body, but it is definitely
Japan's FTC,
right? Yeah, and it's it's definitely a threat that they're going to have to deal with. It's sort of, I think, in response to the tariffs. I mean, the U.S. is basically saying we're going alone, and it's called America First. I mean, and so these other countries are no longer just going to let our companies do whatever they want, which I think seems probably like a natural response.
Yeah, in this case, Japan is accusing Google of not allowing other search engines to be, reasonably positioned on Android devices. I mean, sounds about right.
Which I think they do.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. And then also, Google faces potential $6.6 billion UK antitrust lawsuit over search advertising. The collective action says Google abused its dominant position to exclude competitors from searches. This is also Wall Street Journal.
Yeah. And so Google is hard for me because they have a monopoly on search. But I think they earned their way to that monopoly, like one customer at a time, by having the best product. They didn't, unlike Meta, they didn't really buy up everyone. They just outcompeted. Now, they did buy Android, but they've kept it open source. And then I also think search is becoming less and less valuable every day. So I have less feelings that Google should be broken up, because I don't see what would you take out of there. Now, maybe they should allow, I don't know, some other search engine to be installed on a phone, but I don't know. I have a harder time seeing the Google case.
Yeah, I mean, you made an important point that I hadn't quite thought about, but there's no question search is becoming less meaningful by the day. AI is absolutely eating into SEO. Yeah, like big time.
And Google's cannibalizing itself, as they need to.
Well, I mean, to some degree, but I don't think Gemini has nearly the market share that ChatGPT does. So, I mean, the reality is...
But they are cannibalizing their own Google search with AI. And it's really affecting the downstream websites.
Of course.
But they have to... No, they may lose the AI race, but I think they're working on it.
Yeah, they're doing their best. But yes, this is really tough. California has taken Trump to court to stop his tariffs. So we've seen quite a bit of Newsom in the news this week. Mm-hmm. Feels like Monday was like his big day to kind of come out and say internationally, hey, other countries, you can do deals with us. Yeah. California is its own country when it comes to the size and strength of its economy. And, we're just going to act independently. I mean, that's a really, really big deal. But, I mean, look, what is it, the fifth largest economy?
Yeah. I mean, it's the size is not the question. It's plenty big enough. Yeah.
I mean, so, he's look.
The problem is he doesn't have a military.
I mean, I understand that. But if you're going to pressure test, now is the time. Now is the time, right? Now is the time. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, even if it is just a stunt to elevate him as a presumptive challenge to whoever the GOP puts up in the next, in the next presidential candidacy. I think him starting to do these types of things makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense politically.
Yeah, and it's a step towards a destination I don't want to go. So,
well, if it actually plays out, if it's more than political theater,
yeah,
sure,
yeah.
It's not clear to me it's more than political theater.
Yeah, that's fine. California cannot do a trade deal with Japan.
No, of course not.
So, and if they do,
that's why I called it theater.
Yeah, right.
That's why I called it theater.
Yeah, but I'm fearful that if the Trump strategy, whatever it is, and I have friends that will tell me exactly what it is. I'm not sure anyone really knows. If the strategy doesn't work and we have a really bad economy, which is certainly a possibility, these stories are going to get more and more scary and important at the same time. And I would like to solve things through elections, not California going rogue, but who knows?
I don't believe they're actually going to go rogue. I view this as a form of protest.
Yeah. Well, that's
kind of like Cory Booker and what he did.
Yeah.
These are they're symbolic because that's the amount of power that the Democrats have right now. They only have symbolic power, and to not do anything would be the worst thing you could possibly do.
Right.
To just be completely absent. So I just view this as
that makes sense to me.
Yeah. This is a great way to remind people of just how important California's economy is and how large it is, and that, he has the audacity to match a Trump. That's kind of how I view it. He's got equal opposite audacity. It's kind of how I see it. So, all right. Okay. Bad news. Going into payers, United Health Group shares plunge. CEO calls out unusual and unacceptable Q1 results. This is Fierce Healthcare. This landed today. It's the first time, I believe, since we have been doing this show, but probably the first time in longer than that, that UHG has missed, and has not only missed, but is changing its outlook for the whole year, which resulted in, I'm not sure where things are right now, but when I sent you the Wall Street Journal story on this, the shares had gone down 20%.
Yeah, it was 20% down pretty close to immediately.
Yeah.
And then I don't know what's happened since then, but it's bad.
Yeah. I mean, and UHG's loss was larger than the other payers, but of course UHG represents the sector in a pretty meaningful way, so everything else kind of got dragged down as well. Elevance was down 2%. Humana had their own bad news, and and they tumbled 7%. And CVS was down 2%.
Yeah, and if United can't deliver in this environment, I don't think anyone can. I mean, they have a lot of levers to pull.
Yes,
but
I one of their levers is balance sheet, and the markets are down.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's like,
yeah,
they're so well diversified, but when the whole economy comes down, it's like, where were they going to run? They couldn't run to their services side. They couldn't rely on the payer side because MLR is going to be a challenge, increasing costs, and then they couldn't even go to the balance sheet because everyone's portfolio's down.
Right.
I mean, it's just, where do you go?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to a guy this morning who thought that maybe this would be good for the health systems.
No,
but I think it's not. I think that's not right. I think because Optum is a pretty big provider itself.
That's right.
And everything is down. So HCA will announce next week. I think health systems, including the well-run health systems, are going to have a hard time. And it's just bad news all around.
Yeah.
So when the bellwether big ship misses, it's not a good sign for anyone.
No. I mean, people who are...
It used to be that if payers did well, the providers didn't do well, and vice versa.
That's right.
That's gone away, though, now.
That's right. No. But both sectors are being assailed.
They're both right. Yeah.
So, all right. And then, look, it all rolls downstream, right? So, to your point.
Yeah. They need to figure out how to get cash.
Right. So we had the Change Healthcare incident last year. UHG issued loans to many of the providers who were waiting for backed up claims while the system was down.
Yeah, right.
It was down for like a month. So, I mean, they issued, a bunch of loans to support people. It might have been more than a month, actually. And now they are demanding repayments for those loans and threatening to garnish reimbursements if they don't get that capital in quickly. Now, it's been a year. To be fair, those loans were probably issued a year ago. There were 0% interest loans.
Yeah.
And so it's probably time to pay, but at the same time, all of those providers have been struggling for that and other reasons, not just the claims issues, but like other reasons. And so it all rolls downstream, and that, as you said, that pressure is not going to be better for necessarily anybody, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, we were talking before the show, UHG's just had a really hard 12 months. I mean,
brutal. And
it's kind of unrelated things, right?
Oh, yes.
Like Change Healthcare cybersecurity hack, takes the whole system down. They have to make these loans. Everyone's mad, maybe rightly. Then Brian Thompson's murdered. They miss earnings. I mean, it's just been a rough thing. So they do need to be paid back. And every physician group and health system that I know never has lots of money sitting around. And so they're going to have to demand it to be paid back, but it's just hard all over.
Yep. Agree. And Humana suffers a setback because they tried to challenge their star ratings for 2025, and they were denied an administrative appeal. So that news hit the stock price, right. But also it's going to be a hit to the earnings.
Yeah, that's right. So it's the star rating was corrected for a couple other payers, but Humana was not in the same camp.
Yeah.
So it's bad.
All right, going to the health system. CHS is selling a majority stake in Texas Hospital to Ascension for $460 million. This is good for CHS to get some cash and get something off of their books, and
good for Ascension.
Yeah. Yep, good for Ascension. So we haven't seen that many mergers and acquisitions happening. The first quarter was down significantly from previous years. Paul and I were talking about that last week.
Yeah.
So kicking off the quarter with a deal like this is a good sign, and hopefully more to come.
Yeah.
Need to get these health systems P&L straight. Cindy Bayer, who was the CEO of Brookdale Senior Living, it was announced that she is no longer the CEO. Apparently she was pushed out of the role. At least that's how it was reported by the Nashville Business Journal.
Yeah, and I don't know any backstory to this, but it's a weird set of circumstances that maybe she got pushed out, but they have no one stepping in. So they don't have a CEO right now, and they're going to start a search, but not clear to me what happened. But it was fast and clearly not, the transition wasn't managed very well.
Yeah, well, it was just sudden, right? I mean, so who knows what actually happened there? But it's I mean, she was a celebrated CEO.
Yeah.
So that's it's certainly eye raising for sure. DaVita says ransomware attack is affecting some of their operations. They became aware of it on Saturday of last week, and it's encrypted some elements of their network. So they're probably still suffering from it right now.
When this story went out, they didn't have it back online yet.
Yeah. Cybersecurity continues to be a massive issue for the health systems. And then Amazon has a strategy to partner with digital health companies. This is our guy Aaron Martin, who's here in Nashville. He actually rolls jiu-jitsu.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, good guy. And so they've been working with best of brand digital health companies. Omada Health, that recently Hinge Health was announced to be one of their key partners. What did you get from this article?
So they are being very clear that they're going to specialize in a very small number of what they call first-party solutions, which would be like One Medical or something that they own. And then for everything else, they're going to try to find best-in-breed third-party.
Yeah,
which I think makes sense. Amazon has tried for a long time to do lots of stuff in healthcare, and it's a hard space. So they do have some assets that they're going to continue to sell with what they call first party, but most things will be third party, and they're picking brands that are well established, which I think makes sense.
Dealer's choice, man. They got the distribution, they got the members. Right. A ton of leverage to offer to these companies. I'm sure they're getting very favorable economics in these deals.
Yeah.
So it just
it makes One Medical better. Makes
1,000%. And Amazon should pick a single partner because the Amazon buyer wants it to be simple and work.
Right.
So I think it's a really good strategy. I think the other thing I like about it is it's been thoughtful and it hasn't rolled out all at one time.
Yeah.
It's sort of been, one partnership at a time.
Yeah.
And I think trying to kind of actually get engagement and sell through and activity going with
Right.
that partnership before they move to the next one. So again, kudos to Aaron for what he's executing here. Into pharma, Lilly soars as study positions weight loss pill to pass Ozempic.
Yeah. So a pill is just going to get much more adoption.
We talked about this at the very beginning of this whole thing.
Right. And Lilly's done a great job sort of navigating their way to get, now it's not fully approved yet, but the study came back with great results.
Yep. And right as of now, the stock is up 14% on the news today.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that just tells you the power of these weight loss things, right? You know what I mean? Just an incredible update for them. And Novo's actually down 1%, probably because they didn't have news to match it, right? You know? Right. Lilly continues to impress, whereas Pfizer is halting the development of their weight loss pill. Pfizer continues to struggle.
Yeah. They have lost their way a little bit. Their pill did not work, and they don't have an injectable, so they're kind of out of the GLP-1
they're
right
out
now.
And now out again, right?
Right.
You know,
They're really struggling overall.
Whereas J&J is boosting their outlook despite incoming tariff costs. I think we reported maybe 3 weeks ago that they were going to invest heavily in manufacturing here in America. What was that number that they had quoted? 500 million, something like that?
I think that's what I was going to say too. I think it's 500 million.
Yeah, 500 million. They're projecting that the tariffs are going to add 400 million in cost today, but they still, in spite of that, are boosting their outlook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, unlike UHG, so I think of it like there are three kind of bellwether stocks in healthcare. There's United Health Group, HCA, and J&J. They sort of cover the three different parts of healthcare. J&J's were very well run, and they're going to have these tariff expenses, but they're able to navigate it.
Yeah, and they're not dealing with all the direct assaults from HHS.
Yes, right. I mean, UHG and HCA both have lots going on.
All right, Health and Us. There's a guest essay opinion from the New York Times. There's a lesson to learn from Daniel Kahneman's death. So Daniel Kahneman, the professor who is very, very well known for his best-selling book, Thinking Fast and Slow. He died, and it was never really reported how he died because he was 90 years old. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of people die at 90, and it's not that weird of a thing, right? Well, we're finding out now that Professor Kahneman died by choice. And he headed to Switzerland, scheduled his death. He was not just lucid. I mean, he was still mentally very sharp.
Yeah, he was still writing and emailing people and kind of working.
Yeah. But he decided that he wanted to die on March 27th of 2024. And that is what he did. And so that's new news, I think, for many. Yeah. And so this guest essay kind of gets into the ethics of it and just talks about what does it mean that someone so celebrated, so talented, who, you know, he talks about the fact that his kidneys were starting to, you know, function was pretty low. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty typical thing.
He's 90 years old.
Yeah, it's pretty typical at 90 for your kidney function to kind of get pretty low. But basically he just opted out of any of the, you know, as he framed it, miseries and indignities of the last years of life. And he just said, you know, not doing it. And it's a pretty incredible story.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it is an incredible story. And I think our health system and you and I and the people listening, our audience, we will benefit from addressing end of life and helping our patients address end of life. And we can always maybe try some new procedure or new medication. Maybe there's a clinical trial going on. And I think it's our job to offer these things, but it's also partly our job to help people understand what the costs and benefits are or how they can approach it. And it's so emotionally charged in the hospital room with like your family members around that it's difficult to get anything accomplished. And so bringing it up in this setting or, you know, the New York Times publishing it, I think is good to talk about.
Yeah, especially with someone as prominent as Daniel Kahneman, right? I mean, I didn't know about this until you.
I didn't know about it until like a couple days ago. Yeah,
and I'm still kind of wrapping my head around the fact that that's actually how he passed, and it was by choice, and especially that he wasn't suffering from anything. There's no dementia, there's no vertigo. You know, his body wasn't breaking down in any sort of abnormal or disease-ridden way. It was just wear and tear. So I think that's the part for me that is like hard to really wrap my head around. I think, it's just hard to wrap my head around. But anyway,
but the health span. I mean, I want to maximize my health span, not necessarily my lifespan, and how one measures that, or when you decide when your years of healthy life is over, is a personal decision. But
well, people would argue with that. I think that's that right there. What you just said is core to the ethical dilemma.
Yes, in 10 states you get to decide. And in 40 states you don't.
It's not universally held that that is true, right?
Yes.
So I think that's
I can almost guarantee you I will die in a state where you have that option.
Yes, you've made that clear. Wall Street Journal, autism rates ticked up in 2022. This is from federal data. 1 in 31 children aged 8 years old had autism that year.
Yeah.
So this is from the CDC.
So it was 1 in 150 in 2000. And now it's roughly 5 times more common. And, there's a lot of controversy around what causes autism. I don't know that anyone knows, but clearly there's more diagnosis of it. It could be that we are better at spotting it. I think we clearly are better than 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's whether it's growing in prevalence or we're noticing it more, it's a significant issue.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's an issue for which RFK Jr. has garnered significant sympathy because, 1 in 31, well, that's a whole lot of parents.
Yeah.
And not to say that all those parents are backing him, but it's a challenging path to raise a child with autism in this world. We've got a portfolio company that provides autism services in the tri-state area, Teamwork.
Yeah.
And their work that they do is so important to give these families a path forward to where their child can live as normal a life as possible, and the parents as well are also well prepared to help their child navigate the world and deal with all the challenges themselves, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's because it presents sort of in that 3 to 5 years old, and we don't know the cause. It just is a really emotionally traumatic process to go through. And scary, and you need a lot of support. And so, yes, there's a lot of parents that are concerned about this, as it should be.
Yeah. All right. AI time.
Yes.
MedStar Health taps Reimagine Care for virtual cancer care support pilot. Did you read this one?
Yeah.
All right. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So MedStar is in the Maryland area, and they are using AI now to sort of work with cancer patients 24/7, sort of always available, which would be difficult with, a full human staff. And I think it seems good. I mean, adding sort of that 24/7 care with a AI tool that provides, accurate information is really good.
Yeah, and I mean, important for patients with cancer, the remote monitoring aspect of things.
And you might be sick from chemotherapy at a time when the office is not open, and getting advice on what to do is great.
Yep. All right, now getting into real deal AI. Nvidia to make AI supercomputers entirely in the U.S. I mean, I think these kinds of moves are going to be necessary to appease the Trump administration. The company is working with Foxconn on a supercomputer plant in Houston, so still working with a Chinese company.
Yeah,
because they're the masters of building these plants. But it will be made entirely in the U.S.
Yeah, and I think this is great. I also think that all of these announcements, they just take a while to actually break ground, build the facility, and you don't hire people for a year for a while. So I want to celebrate these things, and I don't know if they will replace, layoffs that happened this quarter.
Also, last week, Paul and I were reviewing a story on NPR that talked about the fact that Jensen Huang went to went to Mar-a-Lago,
Right.
had a conversation, and got the whole ban on H20 processors going to China reversed. And a week later, no. Nvidia is going to take a quarterly charge of $5.5 billion tied to those H20 graphic GPUs that were going to be going to China. And as a result of that, the stock slid 5% in trading.
Yeah. So it turns out you have to live at Mar-a-Lago now. You can't leave. You can't leave.
Listen. These last minute attempts. No. Long-term loyalty.
Right.
Long-term loyalty. You can't be dropping into Mar-a-Lago after the fact, right?
Yeah.
That's not going to work. So yeah. Look, that's a meaningful impairment. 5% of Nvidia.
Yeah.
Like, what does that do to the overall S&P 500? Was that like a 1% hit to the whole thing? Basically?
Probably. Yeah.
So yeah, that's just pretty meaningful. All right, Anthropic's Claude can now read your Gmail. So Google Workplace has the ability for other third-party apps to integrate, and so Anthropic smartly is making itself competitive with Google's native AI solution Gemini by leveraging those API integrations into Google Workplace. And now, if you use Claude and Claude is your favorite, AI bot, you can also leverage all the data inside of your Google Workplace.
Yeah, which they could always do from a technology point of view. They just now have decided to add it in as a feature, which is great. I don't know why they waited this long, but it's a welcome addition because I'm on the G Suite.
Yeah, exactly. And you like Claude too, right?
Yeah.
All right, OpenAI has some updates. So OpenAI just gave ChatGPT a much better memory. Here's what it means for you. This is Tom's guide. Basically, they've increased the memory to be able to capture all of your previous chats, and now it's gotten much, much more context, which basically means it's more like your friend now. It's less transactional, and it learns about you over time.
Yeah, I guess you could characterize it as more like your friend. It learns about you over time and keeps track of everything you're asking about, and it will remember things that you don't remember that you told it.
Yeah.
And for many people, I think they overshare to AI tools because it's never going to forget, and then it will end up making the responses much more accurate, but also it gives OpenAI a pretty good window into, you think Meta has a lot of data on you, that this is going to have a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, we're about to move to some commentary from EJazz on X.
Yeah.
One of my big holdups personally, and why I want to run local, LLMs, is because I'm just not willing to give that kind of information willingly to an OpenAI or an Anthropic or any of them. Like, I'm not willing to give my deepest, darkest secrets, right?
Well, especially when I think about using it in healthcare settings. Like, everyone has healthcare issues they're thinking about or wondering about.
Sure.
And I'm not willing to go down that path with any of the AI tools now because they don't have a data.
And I don't think you'll have to, because there will be open source alternatives that will
you can put.
That'll be fantastic for you to have your own truly personal, local, not cloud-based version that over time remembers you, and it does all of these things. I'm
fine with it remembering me as long as all the data is in my study and is not connected to the internet.
Agree. So EJazz, who's in the crypto world, but very, very focused and knowledgeable about AI.
Someone we listen to about AI.
Exactly. Yeah. His take is that, what we said, people will absolutely tell this AI like everything about it. And if you think about how does Meta know about us? Well, because of how we click on things, right? It doesn't really know us because we tell it things.
Yeah.
How does Google know about us? Because we click on things, not because we tell it things, or what we type into search engines, right? That's not the same as like talking to it about yourself.
Yeah.
What OpenAI is about to know about us, or any of these different chatbots, it's not just OpenAI, because of this, is going to be really significant. So, I mean, I very intentionally use the word friend because I think this is a necessary feature. I've been frustrated by the lack of long-term context that these things have had for a while. I'm like, why can't you remember what I said to you yesterday and incorporate that in what I'm asking you today? It's frustrating. It puts the responsibility on me to build these elaborate prompts.
Yes.
Of giving you all the context every single time I talk to you. It's like, it's just not natural, right? It's more work than it feels like it's worth for what the outcome is going to be. Now taking that away is going to be a dramatic increase in the usability. This is a usability issue. And it's a dramatic increase in the usability. And EJAS is just making that point clear. Like, OpenAI is going to have an amazing amount of data.
Yes, it's much more useful or usable, and it's going to create huge switching costs. Like, it's going to be much more sticky. People are not going to want to jump to another algorithm, another AI once they have kind of invested all this time and not effort, but because they're chatting with it, but time building up all the context that then this friend knows me very well, where this Claude guy doesn't know me at all.
That's right.
Or Claude knows me and ChatGPT doesn't know me.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. All right. OpenAI is in talks to buy Windsurf for about $3 billion. So this is one of these vibe coding tools, artificial intelligence assisted coding tools. It was formerly known as Codium. And Windsurf has really sort of swept up and taken a lot of the momentum that Cursor initially had away. And I think there's going to continue to be really, really strong tools in this space, but Windsurf has enough momentum for OpenAI to say, hey, we need you in-house.
Yeah. I mean, I've used both Cursor and Windsurf. I think Windsurf is incrementally better and half the price.
Well, there you go.
Now, will there be another one that comes out and it is slightly better and half that price? I think there will be. I think it also, OpenAI is just building this walled garden with all the toys you want to play with, so you never have to leave. Well, and that's really smart. Yeah, they need to. They need to.
They can't let any other player have an angle on AI that they don't have.
Yeah,
and they shouldn't.
Yeah,
they shouldn't. It's their brand to lose.
Yes,
right. It's their brand to lose. Google was synonymous with search. ChatGPT is synonymous with AI. So they should continue to make those kinds of acquisitions. I think it's very smart. And to that end, they're looking at building a social network because they have realized that, the third-party data thing is insufficient, right? They when you look at Google has all of the Google Workspace stuff. They have Gmail, and they also have YouTube. It's an incredible set of data, right? Plus they also have all the search data that they get to leverage.
I mean, Google has
X.
Right. Grok is where I think really I noticed, and it was just apparent that they were able to leverage the X data feed in real time and get better results. So if I need something that is real time, I'm going to Grok because it's ingesting all the Twitter feed all the time. Google has that potential, but we talked about this a couple weeks ago, they're slow.
Yes.
They haven't really leveraged it like X did.
Yeah.
And so I think it's smart for them to try to build a social network.
They got enough money.
It's hard to get the network kind of going, but they have enough money. They have a lot of
They've got a strong enough brand.
Yeah,
they've got strong enough to put a shot on goal.
Image-based memes that coming off AI that I think there's a starting place there.
Yeah. So that's their focus. Okay, and then the final story, and this is sort of a theory. An MIT economics professor is basically saying that humans have an opportunity to ensure that AI does not take all of our jobs, but we have to act quickly. I think this is something to some degree you and I agree with. I think the acting quickly is going to be very unevenly distributed. I think very few will act quickly in the way he's referring to here. Mm-hmm. And that will give those few an unbelievable advantage over the rest of the humans. But I think many, many humans will just lose. That's my sort of on the ground assertion about this. It's okay for an MIT economics professor who's in MIT to sort of come up with this, but that's not necessarily the real world. I don't mean to knock him or anything like that. I just don't know that the majority of humans will. I just don't know the majority of humans will act as quickly as he's hoping.
Yeah, I would even go further. I think the majority of humans could not take this strategy because it really is about learning to use AI tools to give yourself an advantage as a orthopedic surgeon or as a nurse or as a home care worker or a payer so that you can be the best in your field and sort of keep up with AI in the sense that you know how to apply it in your domain. I think that could work for 10% of any kind of professional group, but then I think it's over after that. And so I think he is giving a perspective that says it's not just like completely over for humans and we're just going to be put out to pasture and fed, videos on TikTok to watch. But it's not a path that every human could follow.
No,
by definition.
He's a MacArthur genius. The guy is a genius.
Right. Yeah, and for him, it could work out.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's kind of the point, man. You got to be a little bit more on the ground.
Yeah.
With real people, and listen, I'm not talking about blue collar workers. I'm talking about on the ground with like everyday knowledge workers.
Yeah.
To just kind of know like how difficult it is for people emotionally to work with AI today. Like by the time these things get good enough, it's just moving too quickly. It's just moving too quickly. So
Yes.
I don't.
I mean, we have been working on this for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And
we're nowhere.
We're nowhere. Yeah.
We're nowhere relative to the progress that AI has made. I don't think we can say we're actually nowhere because we do use AI in aspects of our business today. This is no question. We use it for analysis. We use it for content generation. Like, we use it. But like compared to how fast AI has evolved.
Yeah, that's right. And I think there's a decent number of months where it wasn't really ready to be fully turned on. And now I think it is ready. The technology is ready. It's more me and
the
you
integration
and the
transformation.
The integration and the user interface and how it fits into our existing business models that we have to figure out.
Agree. All right, man. Another great show.
Yeah. We'll be back again next week to cover another 100 shows and stories.
All right, man.